Okay, this video is how to develop self-control, because I see a lot of young men, and a lot of young men have very poor self-control. They're very impulsive, they have a hot temper, they get angry very easily, they get physical very easily. They're kind of viewed as being hot-headed, impulsive, kind of violent, and stupid. And older, more sophisticated men, when young guys behave that way, they don't want them around. They're like, look, this guy's a dumb shit. He's an aggressive, stupid idiot. He's low class. We don't want him around. Okay, so if you want to be accepted by more sophisticated, wealthy, successful men, you have to show that they can trust you, that you're going to behave, that you're going to be reliable. Okay, if you go acting like an impulsive jerk, they're not going to want anything to do with you. Plus, you're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble because the world right now really is not very favorable towards men. And if you add to that by being impulsive and hot-tempered, things are going to get a lot worse for you. So here's a quote from Robert Greene. He wrote a book called The 48 Rules of Power. Now, by the way, Robert Greene, I think he's kind of a jerk, okay? But it's a magnificent book. It's a masterpiece book. All men should read this book, 48 Rules of Power. His other books, I don't think they're so good. Mastery's okay. So anyways, he says, your contact with reality is your power in life. If you lose it, you are in trouble. If someone can control your perception, they can control you. The ability to understand what motivates the other person is a key to success. 90% of what happens, of what matters, is nonverbal. It's not the words. People use words to lie, to deceive you. To achieve high-level goals, you must learn to control your emotions. You need to control your emotions. You have to be open. You have to be patient. And that's true. So you have to learn, and you also have to be kind of detached because you want to be able to pick up on all the little things that are happening in a meeting, at your job, or in a social situation. If you're all upset and angry, you're going to be self-absorbed, looking inward rather than looking outward, absorbing the people in the room, figuring out what's really happening. Because I've seen lots of dishonest, shady deals made in business and all kinds of environments. And you'll often pick up on what's happening from the body language of the players. So you have to be cool enough that you can observe it rather than pissed off, okay? Let's see. Other books that are worth reading. You should read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's a good basic book. You should read books about body language. A lot of young men, including myself when I was young, they're not that perceptive about body language, but it is super valuable. I've talked about that with women. Women use body language, little head tilts and eye flicks and all this little stuff a lot more than men do. So if you ever want to understand women better, not that I'm the best expert in the world, but I've learned through the years, through making mistakes, you got to look at them and see where their body language is going. That'll often say more than their words. Office Smarts by Don Steele, something like our Don Steele. That was the best. I read a whole bunch of books on Office Smarts. That was the best one. Okay, it says What They Will Never Tell You is part of like the subtitle of it. Okay. Also, the rules are different for men and women. Don't expect things to be fair in society. Women in the current modern United States were very much favored over men. Not because they deserve it, but just because you have to remember the previous secular rulers, they wanted to get rid of the country. And so they were trying to kind of, in a sense, turn it into a gynocracy because they felt that would be much easier to destroy. A patriarchy is much harder to destroy and take apart than a gynocracy. Okay, that's just a fact. All long-term successful countries, they're all patriarchies. It's just the way it is. Okay, and also a woman can be allowed to have much worse behavior. I've seen a lot of terrible behaved women get away with unbelievable things because when a woman has a temper tantrum, they just say, "Oh, she's having a bad day. It's that time of the month." People act like it's a joke. I've seen incredibly bad behavior in women. But when a man behaves bad, people just call security. They don't say, "Are you having a bad day?" Because they're afraid of him because he's big and he's strong, he's potentially dangerous. Whereas the woman, they figure she's weak. The average woman has the strength of a 6th grade boy, like a child, okay? So people don't take them as seriously as they should, and women get away with a lot of bad behavior. Okay, and they're very good at shifting the blame and playing games, so they'll get away with stuff that you will not get away with as a man. And you look at a conversation, a man can't cry and wimp and all that stuff, or they say he's a wussy, he's a worthless freaking crybaby, Jordan Peterson, okay? And a man can't get angry and stomp his feet and have a temper tantrum, or they say he's out of control, he's dangerous, okay? A woman can do all of that stuff And so she's got a lot more emotional maneuverability in an argument than a man does. That gives her an advantage. Okay. Young guys also, they often grow up playing sports and hanging around with their friends from sports. And that is a different world. The world of sports is honest, okay, in comparison with the corporate world by far. And don't worry, it's not perfectly honest, but, in a wrestling room, whoever is the starter has to defeat everybody else in their weight class to get that starting spot. There's nothing ambiguous about it. You either win the spot or you don't. But it's not like that in the corporate world. Lots of people in the corporate world get promoted who don't deserve it at all. They just get promoted because they're easy to control, they're a puppet, because they're a co-ethnic, because they're a butt kisser, whatever it is, okay? It's quite often not a merit. Sports tend to be a meritocracy, and that's good. Whoever is the best player tends to get to be the starter, all right? Versus in the corporate world, it's very often you're dealing with a monopoly, and there's lots of shell game, corporate nepotism, favoritism, all that kind of stuff. So you just have to accept the fact that that's how the world is. And once you don't try to change the world, don't say, well, it should be like this way. So what if you think it should be different? No one cares what you think. So you just have to learn how to deal with it. And you have to accept the fact that, the good old days of childhood hanging around with your friends playing sports, they're gone. You now have to deal with the real world as it is. And a lot of people are going to hate you for bizarre reasons. They're just going to hate you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I was the student athlete of the year at Stanford University. I kind of thought of myself as the all-American boy. Fantastic at school, fantastic at sports, strong, hardworking, eager to please and achieve, all right? But I ran into lots of people. They would hate me for bizarre reasons. Some of them because they hate men. Some because they hate heterosexual men. Some because they don't like people who are super competent. Some because, I was a Hispanic in the Hispanic Medical Student Society. Some people didn't like me because I don't have a Hispanic last name, because my mother's an off-the-boat Puerto Rican. My father's an Irish guy. So I would run into weird things, like these minority professors, Hispanic professors, would refuse to help me when I wrote a book about Spanish language. I'm like, why wouldn't they help me? I thought that was bizarre, okay? And I would run into those things. And I would also run into people who hated me for winning academic awards. I know that sounds weird, but they blocked me from being allowed to be a tutor. I was doing it on a volunteer basis, but they blocked me, okay? Then we get these stupid people that were on academic probation and have them be tutors. And even though I was a great tutor, they would block me. I was first in my class. So I would run into all kinds of weird blockages and hassles, and I'd find out from people that these people were bad-mouthing me and stuff. I'm like, where is that coming from? But it's there, and so it's just going to be there. And a lot of times it's because they're jealous or they're resentful for some reason. Who knows? You'll see lots of ethnic favoritism, people getting promoted because they're from the right ethnic group and you're not. So anyways, I'm just telling you, you're going to have to deal with these things, and there's nothing you could do about it, but it's better to not overreact to it, and you'll kind of figure out your path, whatever that might be. You want to avoid being stressed out if you can, because being stressed out makes you impulsive. When you're stressed, you're running from a tiger in the dark. You got to be impulsive, real quick, climb a tree. But in real life, you don't want to be that way. You want to be kind of calm, cool, collected, so you can see things objectively as they are and thus make wiser decisions. So you want to try to get your sleep at night, because being sleep deprived makes you behave like you're stressed out. Okay, drinking caffeine raises the same hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, catecholamines. So that will make you impulsive. So you should quit caffeine. If possible, try to quit it completely, or limit it to at most 1 cup. Better to quit it completely. Try to get your 7-8 hours a night of sleep. Also, you're at higher risk to be kind of out of control, violent, impulsive, and unsuccessful if you're raised by a single mom. Okay? You're better off if you were raised by both your parents. And if your parents are divorced, spend some time with your father. If your father's not in the picture, have a good male role model who has good self-control, because you have to learn to behave like them. Because what I've seen, for example, I'll just tell you a story like with my wife. The kids would have invitations to go to their friend's house for the weekend, but they would also have weekend school, and they would have homework, or there were other things I wanted them to do. And my wife would take them to their friend's house Friday night and not have them come back till Sunday night, because she just wanted them out of the house because they're too much work for her. Whereas I'm like, no, you're not getting a ride to your friend's house until Saturday afternoon when you've done all your work, completed all your schoolwork, and done the other things you're supposed to do in the house. So what I'm trying to say is fathers tend to be like that, saying, look, do your job. I don't care if you don't go to your friend's house. I don't care if you cry all day. Shut up. Get out of here. Okay? Whereas a mom is like, oh, it's okay, sweetheart. I'll give you a ride to your friend's house. They spoil their kids in comparison to fathers. They just do. There are some exceptions to that, but usually they're not. So boys learn self-control from their fathers. My dad was a great role model. Up early in the morning every day, worked all day long. And that was good for me. Then he would read every night. So I wanted to be like my dad. A lot of kids, they don't have a father around, and they take on these role models as these sports athletes, crazy guys. They got an earring, they're with 10 different women doing drugs, okay? Those are bad role models, okay? Parents are better, more realistic role models. They love the kid and they want to set an example, and the kid's more likely to end up being like their parents than some celebrity star athlete, okay? Not that many people are Shaquille O'Neal, 7 feet tall, okay? You're not going to be playing NBA basketball unless you're quite tall and athletic, and not many people are, okay? So, because I can remember back when I was in grade school, most of the guys thought they were all going to be pro athletes when they grow up. That's common for kids to have those types of unrealistic expectations. I think boys should be kind of told the truth. No one cares about you. A lot of people hate you. The only people who love you is your mother and your father. Maybe your siblings if you're lucky, okay? But accept the fact the world doesn't give a rat's tail about you. That helps you because then you have low expectations. You want to have low expectations when you walk into social situations because that way it's people who have these false expectations that everybody should go out of their way to be nice to them. They're always angry because that doesn't happen. Whereas if you expect that nobody's going to do anything for you, and then when people are nice, you're like, well, thank you. You're polite and appreciative, and that helps you to get along with people. Like I used to be offended when I was a young guy when people would be rude to me. Now I'm just like, well, this person's a low-life, stupid piece of crap. That's just how they behave. I'll be polite to them and then I'll just avoid them. Okay, but I don't take it personally. I'm like, they're a freaking moron, and why would I care what this retarded low-life scumbag does or towards me? They can't help it. They're just a scumbag low-life. So I don't take it personally. I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time interacting with a lowlife. I'm not going to interact with a barking dog. Why would I waste my time with this lowlife? Okay, and that's a good way to be. It's good to be stuck up. Okay, it's very good to be stuck up because it helps prevent you from getting involved with lowlife people. Okay, if other people want to behave like lowlifes, be getting drunk and acting stupid or doing nasty things, you just stay away from them. Say, I'm not going to associate with all these lowlifes. The United States, the last 25 years, like I was sort of alluding to earlier, has become very anti-male. This was intentional. Again, it was to sort of set the stage of a gynocracy with all this nonsense like feminism and these other things because it wanted society to be weak. It wanted society to be easy to destroy. Okay, noble masculinity is hard to destroy. It's a strong, solid thing that goes back thousands of years with all kinds of incredible achievements. So that's where a strong society comes from. That and a religion that unites the people, gets them to have a community, to interact with each other, to help each other. Okay, so there was strong attempts to destroy all of that, and especially get rid of noble masculinity. The guys on TV shows when I was a kid, they were heroic men. Charlton Heston, okay, and the Ten Commandments. All these heroic men. There was tons of them. Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, John Wayne, Mel Gibson. All these heroic men, whereas Chuck Connors, okay, father knows best. That's how it was. Whereas nowadays it's all, Homer Simpson, the man's a joke, an idiot, the Family Guy, big fat stupid guys that are ridiculed, okay? That's done on purpose, all right? The family in general tends to be cooperation. So it's nice to have a family and help each other, okay? But the corporate world very often is not like that, or it'll be like that in a phony way. Polite to your face, but behind your back they're messing with you. So you have to watch out for that. So you always want to be fair, be nice, give people the benefit of the doubt, but be ready if they're bullshitting you, lying to you, or trying to screw you over, and be ready to deal with it. Okay, that's just how it is. Look for win-win situations. Try to create them. Try to help them. You be good, even though others aren't good, but don't be a chump and don't leave yourself vulnerable unnecessarily. Okay, diet of animal foods. Animal foods make people more impulsive. They're low in fiber. They tend to have a much higher risk of leaky gut. That can lead to neuroinflammation of the brain, causing anxiety and agitation. Because when you get leaky gut, you get leaky blood-brain barrier. LPS bacterial endotoxins travel in the blood. They go to the brain. The microglia are activated by them. They release toxic chemicals to sterilize the area, the vicinity, and that causes adjacent brain inflammation. Okay, that's neuroinflammation due to leaky gut. It's a pretty common thing. Okay, what else? The high-fat foods, animal foods tend to be high-fat. They cause blood sludge, and then you get decreased oxygen in the brain. When you get decreased oxygen in the brain, you can become agitated. They also are in the context of sodium. Think about a high-fat meal like a pizza with caffeinated soda pop. So you're going to get vasoconstriction from the caffeine, agitation from the caffeine, plus you're going to get hypoxia of the brain, mild hypoxia, let's say 20%. Some from the caffeine, some from the high-fat meal. The sodium vasoconstrictor contributes to that. So now you got a brain that's not getting as much oxygen as it should, while it's simultaneously hyped up on the stimulants. the caffeine, the stress. Also, the processed foods are going to have mitochondria inhibitors in there, like mold inhibitors, fungal inhibitors, same thing. Other mold inhibitors in there from the processed food. The atrazine's a mitochondrial inhibitor. Glyphosate's a mitochondrial inhibitor. That means you can't pump out your cytoplasmic calcium as well, which has the same effect as an excitotoxin, higher cytoplasmic calcium. Holding your cell phone to your ear opens up voltage-gated calcium channels in your brain. All of these things predispose you to becoming agitated. So look at the young guy, typical young guy. He holds the cell phone up to his head, okay? He drinks caffeine. He's sleep deprived. He's getting mistreated a little bit just because he is an adult male. All right, so for all these reasons, they have a tendency to become more agitated than they should, and they have temper tantrums. And then people go, oh, this guy's out of control. Stay away from him. Don't promote him. The plant food's got all the vasodilators to open up your brain arteries. It's got the potassium, vasodilator, magnesium. M for magnesium, M for mellow. Magnesium sits right in the center of the NMDA channel. It's a calcium channel on your neurons. Okay, it's what glutamate binds to, the NMDA receptor. All right, and that lets calcium into the postsynaptic neuron. So you want magnesium blocking the center of it. When you're dietary deficient in magnesium, you'll tend to be less likely to have your NMDA receptors blocked. You'll be more prone to excitotoxicity, which means excitotoxicity means elevated cytoplasmic calcium causing increased activity of the neuron. You don't want that. So you want good oxygen delivery, which comes from a low-fat, plant-based diet with no oil. Let's see, what else? Other excitotoxins in processed food: monosodium glutamate, manufactured free glutamate, aspartame, like I said, glyphosate, the mitochondria inhibitors. I mentioned most of them. Also, mercury from high fructose corn syrup, atrazine from the non-organic corn, glyphosate from the non-organic soy. You also want to reverse osmosis water filter in your kitchen to remove the aluminum and the fluoride. Those are both brain toxins, can cause agitation. All right, well, all of those things, if you get your act together on all those things, people often notice they become more mellowed out and happier when they switch. And you'll see there's been research studies, plenty of them, showing people are less likely to be depressed, anxious, agitated, angry. And just look at all the paleo keto carnivores behave on the internet, on YouTube, like a bunch of jerks, partly because they have no evidence or data to back up that diet, but also because they're out of control from eating these meat diets. So anyways, these are things a young man can do to have better self-control. And I'll bet you notice that you have better self-control when you start doing these things. So I hope this helps you.